everybody. I know you've been anxiously awaiting this new episode of Bid Nerds because that's what you do when you are a nerd like us. You sit around on the internet and you look around and you say, hey, how much is that car worth? I wonder if I can buy that. And if you're a nerd like us, you can't because you don't have any money. But you want to buy all the cars, right?
You're a nerd like us, and you're like, oh, there's fireworks out tonight? No, let's go sit on the computer and look at cars.
Hey, guys, my name is John Polnik. I am your host of Bid Nerds, your daily nerd out on all the automotive enthusiast auction sites, along with my partner, Michael Deeb, coming to you from San Francisco. I am in the Container Park in Las Vegas, Nevada. Come and say hello. Hit the subscribe, like, notification button right now. Look, he's got the smash hand thing going on. Smash that like button. God, I hate that word smash, but you know, whatever. It's what all the internet kids say. We are not kids. We're a couple of old fogies on the interwebs making predictions about what we think the most interesting car of the day will actually sell for or not sell for in some situations on their respective auction site. We make predictions and then we reconcile that prediction at the end of the show. So you can stick around at the end of the show and find out how much this car actually sold for versus what we thought it would sell for. And we are idiots. Don't take our word as advice. Just take it at pure entertainment value because it's pure entertainment. What's going on, Michael Deeb?
JP, you know, we were kids, but we were kids before the mass adoption of fuel injection by most of the auto manufacturers. So we were kids, but back in a carbureted era.
That is true. We are analog in a digital time. Okay, well, let's see here. If you are new to Bid Nerds and you want to know how you saw the thumbnail on this, you're like, yeah, how much is a Boxster worth these days? Let's find out. Look at this one. This is kind of an interesting one, right?
Oh,
for
baby,
a first-gen Boxster, that's very pretty.
Speed yellow, JP. Doug DeMiro on his site Cars and Bids has sourced for us out of San Marcos, California, this 2001 Porsche Boxster S with the 6-speed manual and showing just 47,500 original miles. Really nice car, JP. The 17-inch wheels are not my favorite design for a wheel on the Boxster, but that's easily remedied. Really nice all-black interior, eye-catching speed yellow. I'm not a fan of yellow cars, but I tell you right now, as we go through this, I would rock this car. I would totally enjoy it. What I like about this car, JP, is that it's all bone stock. There's hardly any modifications. He did put in some Bilstein struts, but he didn't do coilovers. Stainless steel brake lines and a couple of badges and headlights from the European cars. JVC head unit I would ditch and get like either a classic radio or just put the stock one back in there. It's interesting to note, and I do take issue with Cars and Bids, that they never address the IMS bearing issue. But in the comments, the seller himself goes on to say that when he had the car, he brought it to his mechanic and asked his mechanic if he recommended doing the IMS bearing for this car. And what the mechanic told him was, since your clutch is in good condition, let's put off the IMS bearing until you need a clutch. Well, now a couple of years later, the seller, the owner of this car, is selling the car before it ever needed a clutch. So he said, the IMS bearing is essentially up to you. And so I appreciate that transparency and that candor, but I can't for the life of me understand why Cars and Bids wouldn't address it when everyone who's educated knows that that is something that you must deal with on some level, right?
Yeah, I mean, let's for those, I mean, there are some people watching this that may not know what you're talking about. What is the IMS? The IMS is the intermediate shaft bearing.
Right.
Look, this is the Achilles heel of all Porsches of this era, with the exception of GT3s and turbos that have a basically different engine.
Right.
The flat six, the M96 engine of this era. It's basically a bearing in between the engine and the transmission, and it has these. If it fails, it destroys the engine. It doesn't like cause a difficult repair or an expensive repair. It causes destruction of the engine. You will need to replace the engine of this car, not rebuild it. completely replaced. So it is the elephant in the room whenever you were talking about a 996, a Boxster, or 997. And this is a first gen Boxster, and the S's tend to be a little bit more likely to have the problem than the non S's for one reason or another. Nobody really seems to be able to have a really good theory as to why. Maybe it's because the S's are driven harder, but I certainly would not take a mechanic's advice in regards to waiting to update this thing. Updating that intermediate shaft bearing is a little expensive. It's about $2,500, maybe $3,000 to get it updated. But you really do have peace of mind. Now, that's not to say that the updated ones don't occasionally fail as well, but far less often. So yeah, it's true that PCAR Market also does the same thing. They avoid conversations. I mean, they've done videos where they've done a complete market analysis of 996s or 997s or Boxsters. They'll talk for an hour about these cars without ever mentioning the intermediate shaft bearing, which is just means you're an idiot. Now, what do you think? Should an IMS be something to scare you away of this car from a car like this? What do you think?
No, my answer is loaded because I would tell people you shouldn't be scared of it. You can do the IMS bearing and you're buying peace of mind because it's an insurance policy to make sure your motor doesn't have a catastrophic failure. That being said, I know me and I regress when I'm behind the wheel. I have no chill when I'm driving a sport. I want to drive a car hard and I want to drive the car fast. And as such, it seems to me that it would be in my best interest to avoid a car that might have a fragile or an Achilles part to it, because I feel like if anybody was going to have one fail, it'd be me, because I drive this. I bang my cars off the rev limiter all the time. This is very much a do as I say and not as I do.
Hold on a second. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't buy one of these. I'd buy a later one that didn't have the IMS problem. But I would tell most people, if you buy one, do the IMS, and you can just enjoy it and not worry about it.
Well, okay, but I think the idea that driving it hard is more likely to cause a failure, that take is erroneous. I mean, in fact, most of the let's call it empirical evidence out there. Most of the mechanics that I've talked to over the years, and most of the people that I know, the cars that get driven hard are the ones that are less likely to fail.
I had never heard that before, and that's great. That makes me feel better because I really want one. I'd like to buy this car. I think this car, at whatever it's going to sell for, is probably one of the best Porsche deals you can buy, because this is a fantastic driving car as far as just going out on the road. If the Boxster and the girl car stigma doesn't bother you, if the yellow paint doesn't bother you, this is a very rewarding drive for something under $30,000, and I think it's an incredible value. But I thought that if I drove the car really hard, I would push mine to the brink sooner than the average driver. And you're telling me that
Porsches driven hard tend to be better Porsches. The thing that worries me most about this car is that it does have so few miles, and a lot of times that means it hasn't really been driven hard. I've seen more of them fail, more IMSs fail at very low miles than I have necessarily at high miles.
A well broken in car.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, I don't think I wouldn't be scared of this car. I think you just have to basically factor in a $3,000 update to the IMS. And while you're in there at this mileage, you may as well replace the clutch because you've already got everything apart. Look, if you're replacing the clutch anyway, the mechanic that gave the advice wasn't totally off the mark. I mean, a clutch replacement is probably around $4,000 on something like this. And it's an extra $500 to $1,000 to throw the IMS bearing update in there while you're already in there, because most of that is labor cost when it comes to IMS. So it goes the reverse. So if you're going to just pull that whole transmission apart to get to it in order to put the IMS update, change a clutch, put it back together, you won't have to go in there ever. I mean, you'll get another 50,000 miles at least of driving where the clutch should last you a long time if you know what you're doing. You're absolutely right about it being a great driving car. This is a 3.2 liter, flat six matched with a 6-speed and a mid-engine and a car that weighs nothing. I mean, this car in a lot of ways is probably better than a 993 of the previous generation. Like you compare this to a basic 993 with a 3.6. They have about the same horsepower. It's crazy how good these are. People talk about the fried egg, so this is sort of a fried. There's 3 different versions of this front headlight. There's the ones where, like this one, you can see. I don't know if you guys can see the cursor here. But you've got that kind of yellow yoke, right, on the bottom of the light. Sometimes it's orange yellow all the way across the bottom. Sometimes it's just in the turn signal, and there are also clear versions of these. So I think this is probably. You mentioned that you thought this was updated. I think that's the factory one, because the rear lights on these are red and clear, whereas some of them were red and orange.
Got it.
So those are definitely, you would call that a fried egg right there, and that can be replaced with the clear ones, and I think they look a heck of a lot better. But that's that's one of those things that has been maligned much on the interwebs.
Sure has.
But whatever, who cares? The car is just fantastic. I would lower it a little bit, put some MYO2 wheels on here, get rid of the redundant badging on the back, and just have a great time. This car would look really good next to my Speed Yellow R8, right? My wife would like this car.
It sure would. JP, I just think for the money, that's about as good a driving Porsche as you can buy for so little cash. That's the deal right there.
Well,
I agree with you.
And how much is that? What do we think? I mean, it's like, okay, best Porsche bang for the buck. What kind of buck are we talking about?
All right, so JP, with 4 days to go, this car is designed, or is destined, I should say, to close on Friday, the 8th of July. So at the moment, JP, our car is sitting on $17,000 on 17 bids. Now, here's my long-winded answer for a bid. JP, I think this car should be worth $28,000, but this car needs the IMS, which is about $3,000 worth of work. So I'm going to say that this car is going to sell for $25,000, and that is the best bang for the buck in the Porsche world if you want to drive your car.
I don't know, man. I think you could get a next generation Boxster for about that, and maybe it has higher miles, but probably already had the IMS updated. And I think I'd rather do that.
That's a good take.
Just the aesthetic look of the next generation Boxster is so much better than this one. I don't want to S all over first gen Boxsters. They're great for what they are, and I think they're poo-pooed too much. I don't think they deserve a lot of the hate that they get because they're so good. But the second generation looks so much better.
JP, our car's a 2001. Can you give me the year the second generation Boxster you think began?
2005. So the model year 2005.
So 5 younger.
Yeah. Now, even the first gen had an update in 2003, and it was minor. It was like a little bit of an aero. Most of them came with MYO2 wheels, and that really had a really big effect on how these cars looked. Had the clear front, so they didn't have the fried egg thing. Still the same overall shape, but slightly different. Just those subtle differences make all the difference when you're looking at cars' aesthetics. I'm with you. I kind of hate these wheels, so a 2003, you could probably get the same car for about the same price. But for my money, I'm going to spend the same or maybe a little more for a second gen. A lot of people would say, well, why wouldn't you get a .2, second gen, like a 2009 and newer? Those didn't have an IMS issue, but you really are looking at the minimum 40s and up. For an S, you're probably in the 50-something range or more. Still, you're right, though. This is still one of the best bangs for the buck. I don't know, 25 grand. I'm probably looking. Your bid was 25. I think that's really solid. Cars and bids unlike Bring a Trailer, where we see a lot of bid activity late, it's not uncommon for cars and bids to have final bids the day before the thing closes, which is crazy.
don't misunderstand me, but they have the shortest clock.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking about? When you
that.
bid, so when the car gets a bid at the closing time, their clock only restarts to a minute and a half, I think. Whereas you get 2 minutes on Bring a Trailer, and I think you get like 3.5 or 4 minutes on P-Car Market. So the cars and bids close at auction is the quickest action in the online market space. And I would criticize them. I would take issue that their counter is too short of a duration. They should go longer and give their engaged buyers time to make a informed decision. And I think it's too quick.
On Bring a Trailer, I think your number would be spot on. This is a Cars and Bids car. I don't think it breaks 20. I'm saying $19,999.
Wow, you're saying it's all used up.
Look what happened to that M3 that we were talking about the other day.
Yeah, that was heartbreaking. That guy should have got more money.
Yeah, so watch that episode. We'll put the link down below. All right, well, guys, let's see just how much this car actually sells for or fails to sell for. What's the high watermark on Cars and Bids for this car, this 2001 Boxster S? We'll find out right after this. Okay, guys, I want to tell you about Vegas Auto Fest. The drivers are coming. This is one of our big sponsors. It's the biggest car show of the year in Las Vegas. It's one of the coolest car shows you can possibly experience anywhere. If you haven't made plans to be part of Vegas Auto Fest on September 17th, then do it now. Go to vegasautofest.com and register your car. You think you're a car enthusiast? Doesn't matter where you live. Plan a trip to Vegas on September 17th and come out and see this show. It's like Monterey Car Week all in a day. Have you ever been to the Quail? Have you ever been to Works Reunion? Have you ever been to Amelia Island? All those car shows are amazing and great. Have you been to Luftkult? Sure, but Vegas Auto Fest is something special. Make a plan for September 17th. We'll see you in Vegas. All right, welcome back, guys. You're back to Bid Nerds. You just saw a commercial for our awesome sponsor. I don't know who that was. Probably Vegas Auto Fest or something. We don't see the commercials in between. It's been a week since we just talked to you. I know it just seems it's 60 seconds we were just here. Now it's a week later. Yeah. Here we are. Yeah. You're doing some time travel. Welcome back. In that time travel, I'm sure you hit the subscribe, like, and notification buttons so that you are given the notification that the freshest nerds are available because you don't want old, stale nerds. This show is about the most interesting car of the day from all the automotive enthusiast auction sites, including Bring a Trailer, Cars and Bids, P-Car Market, and whoever else is slinging cars on an auction site. Hey, we were just talking about a pretty darn neat car, the car that we think is the most interesting car of the day, this little Porsche Boxster. Michael Deeb, want to do a quick reminder of what this was, just real quick.
Yeah, the 2001 Boxster S with just 47,000 miles. It's got an IMS bearing, and it's a nice car. It's just interesting because it's on Doug DeMiro's site, so I thought this would be fun to cover and see what he can do with a cool Porsche.
All right, so what was your prediction? What was my prediction? Which one of us was right? What happened here at the end of the auction?
I think the floor on these have raised like so many other cars in this current market. Inflation. So I didn't think I was going big when I said 25,000, but then you came way underneath me at $19,999, which is a very specific bid. Our car sold for, wait for it, let me tee it up, $24,000 on 37 bids. JP, of the 5 cars we covered last week, 37 bids was the most action on any of the cars we looked at. So well done to Cars and Bids. And I'd say well sold, $24,000, JP. In my opinion, that's all the money. This seller got everything he could hope for, and I think the buyer got good cars. The work is done, so I think this is a turnkey. Enjoy it this summer. It doesn't have to go to a mechanic. You can just start driving it right away. So I'd say it's well bought as well.
I mean, you just said it, inflation. It's funny because people are talking about the market maybe shifting or falling or whatever or correcting, and we are certainly seeing that in some sectors, but not a lot in Porsche. I think what we're seeing is just adjustments for inflation. This price that the car sold for is basically the new $20,000. I don't even think this car is a $20,000 car. Really, as fantastic as it is. Look, and I am not knocking it. I just can't get my head around the idea that a first-gen Boxster, even one as nice as this, could be worth that much. But you start comparing it to what else you get for $25,000. I mean, this is a pretty low mileage, spectacular 3.2 liter sports car made by Porsche. What else do you get? I mean, this is about as good as
you can't. Yeah, I think that's the best deal. If it's your first time Porsche buyer, that's your car right there. That's the first way to get in the thing. And they're great driving cars too. I mean, again, you could have got a mid-year SC for this money a couple of years ago, but they don't drive like this. They're fun for what they are, but this is a much better starter car if you don't know how to drive a rear-engine air-cooled. Really interesting car. And JP, 3 years ago, this wasn't even a $20,000 car. This was a $14,000 car. This car's come up $10,000
on a good day.
Yeah, this is a $14,000 car 4 years ago when we were still working cotton. I mean, crazy with how the market has changed. It's really different.
I'm pretty sure it's all because it's speed yellow. Porsche speed yellow is the color for a drop top. I'm quite positive that's why it brought all the money. I'm just making that up because some people that might know me know that I have a speed yellow convertible, not this car.
A banana hammock.
And I'm hoping when I go to sell mine that it brings this kind of premium because of the color. Because that's the only thing I can really think of. What 20? That's just bonkers to me. It's bonkers.
Yeah, it is crazy.
Would you? Okay. Yeah. Here's a question. Was it like a year ago or so? You and I, we typically mention our good friends over at DWA Driving While Awesome. They do an annual drive called the Sierra Madre Drive, and you and I took that drive. I was in a 993 C4. And I believe you were in your M491 Carrera.
Yep.
Right. 1984. Of the three cars, my 993 C4, your wide body air cooled G car, or this Boxster S. Which of the three cars do you think would have been the better car, the best car for that Sierra Madre drive?
This car, because it's just modern, the 6-speed and 3.2 liter. Didn't it have your car had a bigger motor, but I mean, this car is just modern tech, JP. It's an unfair comparison. It's not apples to apples. That's the problem. And the weather was spectacular. So, you and I both would have had the top down in this car the entire time. Yeah. So it would have been amazing, but whatever.
There it is, guys. Shopping for a Porsche, I think a .2 first-gen Boxster S with a 6-speed and an updated IMS is one of the best buys on the planet. So if you're out there looking for something to get into and have a great time in, look for one of these. I think you can't go wrong. So there it is. All right, guys, hit the subscribe, like, and notification button, and we will talk about the most interesting car of the day tomorrow at this same place, same time. Look at that. Michael Deeb is smashing that like button, which is what you should be doing as well.
Tell a friend.
We'll see you guys.
Nerds are back. Nerds are back.
Get those nerds!